instead of going out there and buying like very average players like Cedric or, whatever, these types of squad guys, just use the academy,
I agree with that.
just
I
use the
agree with that.
academy.
If you're not
Like,
going to go and buy, like in that position, if you're not going to go and buy a Kefren Turam or a Yusuf Fofana, I'd rather buy a Patino than go and get another El Neni, if I'm honest, because we're not going to see
exactly.
much more than that. And we do, you're right, get one every decade maybe that comes through, and we go, wow. In the 80s it was Rocky, the 90s to Tony Adams, then 2000s Ashley Cole, 2010s Wilshere, and now the 2020s you've got Saka. So you do get one a decade. You don't get 7 or 8 in a decade. That's what you don't get. And Patino
Mhm.
could be one of those that can come in and be a squad player, but I don't see him being a Bukayo Saka. But what I will say is that position does worry me, Jess. In the summer,
Mhm.
that midfield worries me because Partey, Jorginho, and El Neni could all go. And we're left with Declan Rice, and that's it. So we could end up having to revamp our midfield next season by no fault of our own. El Neni and Jorginho look like they're probably going to go. I think it's the end of their contracts. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But Thomas Partey looked like he was flirting with going in the summer. So I'll be amazed if he's still an Arsenal player next season. But I could be wrong. But for me, Declan Rice being the only one there, we're going to have to look defensively and box to box in that midfield and see how we can strengthen it in the summer for me.
I just can't it baffles me how we have constructed a midfield that doesn't have a single like nailed down box to box player in it.
100%.
How we have like 4 number 10s and 3 DMs, but
100%.
no just CM. So we have to move Declan Rice out of his best position in order to play him there. And it's fine. Like, I like the idea of Declan Rice, Thomas Partey, and Odegaard, but there's no other option? None?
Agreed.
Like, how have we
Agreed.
done this? I don't get
Yeah,
it.
I agree. I think it's a worry. And I said that we were left short in a few positions, and box to box midfield was one of them, as well as um, a centre forward and a right sided forward. I think Ivan Toney and Pedro Neto would both be great, and I still think we're short in the middle, box to box, and that is a worry for me moving forward because we're okay in most other areas, but in midfield, the departments maybe we're a bit short in some of the other positions, but we could be really short in the summer if players were to leave. So that's a big concern for me.
You mentioned, Yusuf Fofana. Is that somebody that you really like?
I
Yeah.
do. I like him and Kefren Turam. I think both of those players are players that can come in and do more of a box to box role, but also have the presence and athleticism to do a little bit of everything like Declan Rice. If you needed them to anchor the midfield, I think they could. And I think if you need them to have that athleticism and show the box to box movement, I think they could do that as well. I don't see any of those as just a 6 or just an 8. I think they could both do both roles, which is why I've suggested those two players. Um, I know we were linked with Tielemans beforehand, and I always had the doubt that he could do the defensive side. I always had the doubt that he could go backwards and forwards, and it's looking like that actually hasn't really 100% worked out for Villa anyway. So for me,
Mhm.
I'm glad that we didn't go down that route. Declan Rice is a phenomenon, mate. He's absolutely outstanding.
He's
For
so
a player
good.
that can, oh, mate,
Yeah.
unbelievable, worth every penny.
Mhm.
But we need something else there because if he's to get a knock, we don't have that box to box guy there. We've got to play Havertz, so we've got to play Vieira or Smith Rowe, and they're too attack minded for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know if you were there. You probably were at the game that we played against Monaco in preseason. I thought Fofana was outstanding in that game.
Same,
I was like,
same.
this guy is he's not just like pure, like just P and P. He definitely has like technical ability. And what was funny is like during the summer, his Monaco actually tried to sell him to Nottingham Forest. They had like a deal agreed
That's right.
and he rejected it. And I was like, good, because you are way too good to go to Nottingham Forest. This is a French international, by the way,
Agreed.
that played in the World Cup. He does not need to be going to Nottingham Forest. And we're said to have like a really good relationship with Monaco. Obviously, we just sold Balogun to them. So like I'd be looking at him like if we needed to go out there and buy a box to box, like he's somebody that stands out to me quite a bit. Because he's not just P&P kind of guy. He has the skills and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, like I would
Yep.
like for Arsenal to go out there and get that player, but it annoys me that we had all the money this past summer to do it and we just didn't. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. So
I
we
agree.
need to look up top, obviously. I think the two players that we mentioned earlier were Nketiah probably needs to be upgraded and Reece Nelson probably needs to be upgraded as well. And that's where all the rumors around Pedro Neto and Ivan Toney come in. And there's been a lot of debate on whether or not Ivan Toney is good enough for Arsenal. If he's, is he too old? Is he too this? Is he too that? I wanted to ask you about it because, like, I don't think people realize that, like, Ian Wright was not a child when he came to us. you know, like, he wasn't. Like, every single player that comes to Arsenal does not need to be 20. Like, you
Hmm.
can bring in players that are a little bit older. I think as long as the fee is fine. I don't understand why any like people wouldn't want him. He takes free kicks, he takes penalties, he scores goals, he's physical. What are your thoughts on Ivan Toney being the right choice for Arsenal?
Listen, mate, everything you've just said, I echo, and I totally 100% agree with, and I can't stress that enough. When Robert Pires and Ian Wright signed for Arsenal, did everyone scoff at it because they were 28? No, they said this is a great signing, and for me, I don't really know what he can't do. He takes free kicks, he takes penalties. Oh, and he scores them, by the way. He doesn't just take them; he scores both of them. And then people put him down for that. Oh, he scored penalties. Right, that's a good thing, right? He didn't miss 6 penalties. He scored 6 penalties. He can hold the ball up. He can link up play. He's got strength. He's got pace. He's got power, and he can finish. He's a nuisance of himself. He scores goals from inside and outside the box. He's got great link up play. He understands technically and intelligently 1-2s. He's got telepathy with his other players. If he can score 19 goals for Brentford, what can we create for him, and what can he put in the goal for us? So for me, when people are scoffing at that game, I'd rather get Evan Ferguson in the summer or Osimhen in the summer. I kind of get frustrated because I think, how about we win now? How about let's just get Ivan Toney and win now? Let's stop worrying about how good Saka's going to be at 28. Let's actually worry about what we're going to win now with Saka. Imagine what Saliba's going to be like at 27. Imagine what Martinelli's going to be doing at 28. They might be in Real Madrid. I don't know what they're going to be doing. If we don't win nothing in 5 years, they ain't going to be playing for Arsenal. Let me tell you that. They ain't going to sit
Yeah.
there because it's a nice round of place and the Gunnosaurus Rex is still here. They're going to go and win trophies. Do you know what I mean? So for me, this is so important to get the team that can win now. And we might be in an unbelievable position again, Jess, like we were last January. And Caicedo and Mudryk were being linked, and we ended up with Trossard and Jorginho, and it wasn't enough. Now, I'm not blaming those two players, but what I'm saying is that we didn't quite do enough in January to go boom, boom, boom. Wow, Arsenal was serious. It was like, oh, that's a bit disappointing. Thought Arsenal might have done a bit more than that, but fair enough. Let's see what they've got. Oh, they've blew it. I want to get to January, and let's say the unthinkable happens. We're top of the league in January. We're in the Carabao Cup semi-finals. It would be by that point. We've gone through the Champions League group stage. We're waiting to see who our opponents are in February for the last 16. And the FA Cup's just started and we've won the first round. Ivan Toney and Pedro Neto come in. Everybody's going to go, oh dear, that's a problem. Arsenal are serious.
Yeah.
If we do nothing and go, we're going to wait because Osimhen might come in the summer, we're going to keep Eddie, and we lose the league, people are going to go, what are you doing again? What are you doing? So this is a must for me. And there's rumours that he wants to come. He's come on a podcast, and I think the Diary of a CEO, and said Arsenal looks good. Come on, man. How obvious is that? He wants to come to Arsenal.
Yeah.
So,
There's
you
even
know,
like there's rumors that he's like really wants to come to Arsenal. Like we are the choice for him.
yep,
And
yep,
we have a good relationship with Brentford, obviously, because they basically klarna their freaking goalkeeper to us. We could just pay
yep.
later in installments for their number one goalkeeper. So I think Tony would be a good option. Like, I'm not saying that, like, if I could choose any striker in the world, he's the one that I would choose, but that's not how the world works. Like, when you're looking at, like, okay, like you said, if we're in a good situation in January, we do have to try to win the league. Like, it's not always
100%.
about the future and, like, oh, if we get Osimhen or we get Evan Ferguson, then, like you said, by the time Saka and Martinelli are 24, we don't know what's going to happen by then. We have no clue what's going to happen. Like right now, we can only focus on now. And I can only imagine that you spent 200 million in the summer in order to win the league. So if we need one other piece to get us over the line, then we need to get that piece, even if it's not the perfect. We got our perfect midfielder in the summer. We got Declan freaking Rice,
Yep.
perfect player for us. But sometimes you can't just get the perfect player every time. And I think some Arsenal fans are obsessed with this idea of the perfect squad building and you wait until you get the perfect person. I'm sorry, if we don't win the league or we're scrapping for fourth or God forbid we miss out on it or something like that, we're not getting Osimhen. So like It's
But,
like,
you know,
so we're
I
waiting
couldn't
around for
agree more.
somebody that may not even be checking for us like that.
I,
So
I,
it's make any sense to me.
I couldn't agree more. And people say to me, if we don't get Tony, and in the summer we can get Osimhen, or let's pick someone crazy, Kylian Mbappe, right? Never going to happen, by the way. But I'm just giving you an example of
Yeah.
a crazy player, right? Um, we'll wait and we'll get them instead. Okay, that's cool. Then we get to the end of the season and we're trophyless again, and we've come third. Osimhen and Mbappe aren't coming to Arsenal.
Right. They're
So
not.
why would we not now? And now we've missed out on Tony, and he's gone to Chelsea or Tottenham, let's say. So for me, it's an absolute must. Absolute must. Sometimes you can't look at what might happen in 2 years or what could have been in 2 years, because we've
Yeah.
been doing that forever. I've been waiting for 5, 10, 15, now 20 years. And I've been told in 5 years' time, Arsenal will be great. In 5 years' time, Arsenal will be great. And that's happened for 4 times now. So in 3 youth projects, I can't wait another 5 years, man. I really cannot. Like
I do think
literally,
there's a desperation for the youth project, because when you're in a youth project, there's no real expectation for anything to happen now, and so you can
100%.
kind of live in this false positivity kind of world of well, we're not meant to do anything because we're a young team. So I think the youth project gives you a little bit of a buffer to kind of not have any expectations or meet targets, but guys, we're beyond that now. I think we're beyond that now. We've done the process part. We were patient. Almost everybody was patient and totally down with what we're doing. Now look at the team. Look at the team. It's done. We're ready. We're ready now.
We're
So,
ready now. Absolutely.
we're
No more
ready now.
waiting.
It's
And
time
do you
to
know
win
what,
it.
Jess? I've got to say this. Youth projects. Tell me a time when a youth project where everybody was on the average age of 23 went and won trebles, titles, FA Cups. It's not happened because people
Only
talk
one.
about the class.
Does Manchester United count?
So I'll tell you why Manchester United doesn't count. Let me tell
Okay.
you why it doesn't count. Because the class of 92 had Ryan Giggs and David Beckham and Paul Scholes and Gary Neville and Phil Neville, right? Schmeichel wasn't 20. Steve Bruce wasn't 20. Pallister wasn't 20. Eric Cantona wasn't 20. Brian Robson wasn't 20. They had those players that were leaders through the whole of their spine that took
Yeah.
them over the line. So when people say youth projects work with Manchester United, unless you think Steve Bruce was 21 and you think Eric Cantona just burst onto the scene at 19, then
Yeah.
I'm sorry to tell you that you're wrong, because when this was a side that had 4 or 5 really good youth academy players in it, maybe more than that, right? Within the squad, they've maybe had 9 or 10, but that was a squad of 20 that went on to win unbelievable amounts of trophies. But that 92 to 96 side that won titles, that had a lot of experienced heads in it.
Experience.
So, and then by the time they got to the 99 treble winners, Gary Neville wasn't still 21. He was in his early mid 20s again, and Roy Keane. These were players that weren't youngsters then, So the
Mhm.
class of 92, that's another 7 years until they went and won a treble. So they're now 27, not 20. So for me, the youth projects have not really 100% gone on to work. Now, what you need with that experience. Now, Arsenal have got that. We've got experienced heads. There's a difference between being an experienced player and being a young player, because Jesus and Zinchenko are young. They're 25 or 26, they might be now. But they have won a lot in football because they won it
Yeah.
at a young age. But they were surrounded by top talents as well, like Vincent
Yeah.
Kompany and Yaya Toure and David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. So for me, now it's about how we get that sort of implemented. So an Ivan Toney not being 21 does not bother me one bit.
Doesn't bother me either. Everybody can't be a kid, y'all. We got to
Yeah.
get beyond this.